Welcome back to my office. Welcome back upstairs to where there's a mezzanine right outside that door that you cannot yet inhabit. And yet I hope we will get you up here soon. I really do hope there will be a pre-holiday gathering of one kind or the other, maybe starting out small. But, that's coming. And in the meantime, we are brave, we are courageous. These are the themes I'd like to touch on with respect to some products that we've been brave enough, courageous enough to bring aboard, the Wine Steward, but to speak first to another business, someone who's not the Wine Steward necessarily, someone who has something to do with us, Kathy and me, a daughter. You might know that we have two beautiful daughters. That's Mary, that's Elaine, and Mary has just started a new business called Bloom's End. Sounds mysterious, sounds like, what is it? And we want you to find out what it is. I'm going to leave it to you to inquire. I encourage you to go to bloomsend.com, blooms-end.com, and if you like eating good things, please sign up to get the emails from Mary, our daughter, who will be letting you know when the East Bay region of the Bay Area will once again be lucky enough to have access to her wonderful baked creations. So Mary went to the Culinary Institute of America up there in the Napa Valley, and then she did some work for MH Bread and Butter, which you could call a scion or an offshoot or a tartine-inspired bakery. Did that for quite some time. She's also worked for Oliveto in Oakland and has done work for other places like Outer Lands. I think she spent 2 whole years there at Outer Lands in the Outer Sunset area of San Francisco, figuring things out and realizing that she should really at some point strike out on her own. And at this time she has. She signed a lease on a kitchen where for certain hours of certain days and certain days of the week, she has this kitchen as her space to render her amazing works of art. This is not someone trying to make a cake that looks exactly like your car. This is not Ace of Cakes Mary. This is Mary following more, let's put this in a perspective of a Chez Panisse style operation where local ingredients, thoughtfully assembled with the genius, frankly, of somebody who's been baking long enough to know that, yes, baking's a science, but if you're good enough at it, you can actually make your own recipes. She's nailing it now with beautiful, beautiful things. Basically, go to bloomsend.com. You've already met our daughter, I'm sure. You've already been enjoying some of her creations over the years, but this is her new way of getting them to you. Delivery, you order ahead of time, she bakes your order, she can do wedding cakes, she can make cookies. She just does amazing things. And she's not trying to make them look like some Dr. Seuss creation. She's making them taste really, really good. So get to know this new thing that we're extremely happy to announce. The Wine Steward will be a pickup point whenever the East Bay is her chosen region. You've got to get that email. This is courage. This is bravery in the pandemic times. And I just think it's kind of cool that she's doing what we're doing. She's encouraged. She's seeing an opportunity. And so are we. Our opportunity is based on basically your love of us. We are continually inspired to bring on new products, to be brave enough to represent things that a great world wine shop ought to have, only because you keep coming back. You keep maybe watching the video, maybe reading an email, maybe talking to Eric or Ennis or Don or Sharon downstairs and getting really jazzed about the new thing we found for you. You're supporting it. And so now that we've spoken about Mary's new project, bloomsend.com, we're going to leave this up the whole time so that we make sure this gets, maybe you take a photograph of it or something, get on that email. But in the meantime, we're going to tell you about products that we're brave enough to represent here. This wine right here took a little bravery because the label is a little interesting. So some small wineries design their labels according to how they might sell out of their tasting rooms, and they don't give a lot of thought necessarily to how they look on a retail shop shelf. This is no knock against this really cool looking label. I'm just saying that people might not expect to see a label like this on the store of a wine, the shelf of a wine shop. Tasted this wine, loved this wine, loved the people, loved the fact that it is local. This is a Livermore Valley producer called Big White House. We're very glad to have their wine back on the shelf. And we're especially impressed by the fact that they've taken a grape variety you don't see very often called Roussanne and have done a wonderful job with it. I didn't buy this wine for the label. Maybe I bought it in spite of it. Regardless of the label, let's just shut up about the label and talk about the wine. 100% Roussanne from Big White House here in our Livermore Valley. Roussanne is the name of perhaps the most important white grape of the Rhone Valley. Makers of Viognier might argue with that, but this Roussanne is a great expression, and very few people in California do it because it's a very cantankerous grape. It just doesn't behave well in the vineyard. It's also kind of hard to nail in the winery. They've nailed it. This wine speaks to the weather we're about to have, fall weather. Not the weather we're going to have this weekend, but jump past the heat wave we're about to see and think Roussanne. Think white wine with body. White wine with body? Oh, well, that's usually Chardonnay, right? This is the Chardonnay of the Rhone Valley, you might say. And it's interesting in that the smells and flavors are very different from Chardonnay. There's more peach and pear, and both of those things might have actually been flung onto a grill to get just a little bit of smoke and enriched that way, candied. Candied makes you think I'm talking about a sweet wine. This is not sweet, but it's got that opulence. It's got the opulence, the suggestion of sweet fruit, sweet grilled fruit in the nose. This wine is more about texture than flavor in the mouth. Certainly there's wonderful flavors of, I think, pear, maybe poached pear, but the texture is beautiful. It's mouth coating. It's waiting for halibut. Next time you guys get halibut, have some Big White House Roussanne, a rarity, small production. Very proud to have this in the store. So we're going to leave behind the idea of fall wines briefly, because fall and Mother Nature doesn't seem to know it's fall yet, right? So let's speak very briefly about a bright white, meaning it's going to beat the heat. It's going to be refreshing and acidic and zingy instead of being rich and yummy like that Roussanne that we look forward to. This is a white wine from the Alto Adige region of northern Italy, up there at the Dolomites. This is where sometimes you see street signs in German, not Italian. And indeed, this winery is called Erst and Neue, and that sounds very Germanic because it is in fact German. It's a cooperative in northern Italy, because this used to be part of the Austro-Hungarian Republic, maybe not too long ago, and that's why you've got this Germanic influence on the area there. But this is in fact good old Pinot Grigio, except in quality. Pinot Grigio can be pretty mundane, tastes like water, especially if you're spending $6 or $7 for it. Here, you're at $20 and you're less at your wine club discount, but you will taste the difference. You who like good wine, good Pinot Grigio, will recognize a difference here. The big difference here is the minerality of place. When you grow Pinot Grigio in flat land that used to be covered by water, and the soil is a little too fertile, and you're getting many tons per acre, you're getting wine. You're not getting anything special. This is special. This is grown on the slopes of mountains. And this is the announcement that this very familiar label is revived here again at the Wine Steward. We have it back in stock because the new vintage has arrived. Brand new 2019. If you are saying, I've had that wine before, you actually haven't. You haven't had this new 2019. I can vouch for it. I had it 2 hours ago and loving it. It's totally representative. Great Pinot Grigio. To the point of hot weekend coming up before Mother Nature realizes it's fall. Let's also mention that we have a nice little price, reduced price, a discount price on burrata this weekend. We brought in extra burrata because the weather definitely says, why don't you do ensalada caprese with those tomatoes in the backyard with burrata on top? So we have burrata that comes all the way from Puglia, Italy, costs a little bit more than what you see at Trader Joe's, but the product is outstanding. And we want you to get in on it. We want to have perhaps the last big grand celebration of burrata while we have this last heat wave of the year, hopefully the last heat wave. And just acknowledge the fact that you probably have the best tomatoes ever based on hang time out there in that garden right now. Tomatoes are great as of a couple of months ago, but now because they've been hanging around and developing character the same way a grape cluster develops character by hanging out there longer, man, your tomato salads are at their very best right now, aren't they? Involve the burrata. I don't have a tub of burrata up here. I'm taking one home though. And just, you know what it is. You've loved it before. I'm just reminding. Burrata, Pinot Grigio, your tomatoes, you're set for this freaking hot weekend we have in store for us. A little more about bravery. We're brave enough, because you are, to love sparkling wine, to say sparkling wine is great wine. And we told you last week that we have a sparkling wine sampler. We've recognized the fact that so many of you have gotten into this product that too many used to ignore and save entirely for special occasions. But now sparkling wine is for every day, especially because we are realizing sparkling wine can happen at $20. At $18, at $25. And that is what this pack of 6 wines for a total of $129.99 consists of. Great sparkling wine, not from Champagne, but from all other parts of the world. This is in fact from France. It's Cremant de Bourgogne, near Champagne, Burgundy, France. Mercat, this is Cava from Spain. Hubert, this is from Austria. And so on. We have 3 others I could tell you about, and I will tell you about them. The cool thing about this sampler is purchasing this gets you invited to a Zoom event we're doing next Thursday at 6:30 p.m. You can read all about this when you look up this product on thewinesteward.com to get the details. Make sure we invite you to attend a Zoom event that will last about an hour while you watch me tasting all of these sparkling wines, getting a little bit tickly and giggly, the same way Miss Piggy did in the Muppet movie. Who was serving them? Trivia question. Who was serving Kermit and Miss Piggy in the Muppet movie? I want to hear back. At any rate, sparkling wine, Zoom event next week. Treat this as a sampler if you'd like. 6 fantastic bottles of bubbly. We're going to keep selling this for the next month and a half, regardless of the Zoom event. Treat this as a wonderful value. 6 sparkling wines, Zoom or not. But you can hear us elaborate a little bit on them next week if you'd like. Get in on this if you will. Per the idea of bubbles, just really quickly, whereas I said none of these are champagnes, we're going to save champagne for a little closer to the holidays. We're not saving it for a little closer to the holidays with respect to our shelf. We are so pleased to represent once again on our shelf, just came in half an hour ago, R.H. Coutier, one of the most beautiful champagne labels in the business, a beautiful Belle Epoque kind of style label. This is delicious, mid-40s price. I think it dips under 40 with your wine club discount. R.H. Coutier, small production champagne, the real stuff. And this label starts it, we taste with our eyes, don't we? But it finishes with great product in the bottle. I am glad to have it back. Just announcing that a bubble, the elite sparkling wine champagne is back here. All right. Let's get back to that idea of fall and how we are thinking about if we're having white wine, once the weather turns colder, we're not necessarily in need of crisp and clean and zingy anymore. Maybe because we have changed our appetite, we're no longer buying all those salad ingredients, but we're switching all of a sudden to richer foods, heartier foods. We come in on a darker evening, on a colder night, and we're ready to hunker down in front of a slab and have something with a little more force in the flavor and the body. And so let's just put this in front of you and say this would be an ultimate white wine to have as the fall hits, as we get into winter. This is Châteauneuf-du-Pape Blanc. This is not something you see every day because Châteauneuf-du-Pape, the great southern Rhone wine region, makes only 5% white wine. And you also don't see it every day because Châteauneuf-du-Pape Blanc automatically costs over $40 and more often costs $55, $60, $75 for white wine that most people haven't even had before. I mean, look at this. This is really good. And yet, gosh darn it, it's $57.99. So this is the idea for pork roast, for halibut, for pumpkin soup, that kind of thing we think about having this time of the year as we ease into fall and winter. But we don't always have that budget, right? I am so pleased to announce the arrival of a rarity. In fact, not just a rarity, an unknown. This is a wine from France, from a 2 hours drive west of Châteauneuf-du-Pape in a very little known region called Fougères. Fougères is part of the larger area called the Languedoc, and it is best known for red wine. This is the very first Fougères Blanc I have ever tasted, and I instantly fell in love, and I instantly connected this wine to Châteauneuf-du-Pape Blanc, except when I saw the price. At any rate, let's back up and tell you, this wine comes from Fougères. The producer name, very hard to read here, I'm sorry, is Domaine Cottebrune, Cottebrune. It's a 2018. This wine is fermented in barrel, and it stays in barrel for, I think, 8 months. Those barrels are not new. Those barrels are not giving oak flavors to the wine. Those barrels are allowing the enrichment of oxidation, and that's all. So this is white wine for fall, winter, a little richer, enriched because of what it's made of, and enriched because of how it was made with barrel fermentation and barrel aging. What's it made of? It's made of 33, basically a third each. Roussanne, the noble grape of the Rhone Valley, Roussanne, and Vermentino, also known as Rolle, and Grenache Blanc. So 2 of those are wines that you will in fact see in Châteauneuf-du-Pape Blanc. Vermentino is not. Vermentino could be, but it's not on the approved list for Châteauneuf-du-Pape Blanc. No matter. When I smell this, holy crud, this wine is so appealing, and especially as I'm anticipating colder nights, when it's almost too cold and the food is too rich to think about white wine. No, white wines that have this wonderful enrichment are totally at home with pork roast, butternut squash, pumpkin soup, halibut. If you're gonna run out to the grill and shiver a little bit and do some of that rich white fish out there, man, this wine emulates Châteauneuf-du-Pape Blanc. It's not $57.99. I think we have it at $23.99. It's a rarity. This is an example of a Northern Rhone producer, a guy named Pierre Gaillard, a well-known guy in his region, Northern Rhone, heading to an area where land is a little cheaper to do a special project. He makes $100 plus wines in the Northern Rhone. He heads here so that you, on a Tuesday night, can have world-class white wine that you've never heard of. All you need to do is get over the hump of that obstacle, that mental block of, never heard of it, I'll never try it. I'm advocating, folks. I've connected it to something you might have heard of. I'm promising great wine here for $23.99, and that's before your wine club discount. By the way, if you don't remember your code for discount on thewinesteward.com, just call us, send me an email, and we'll refresh your memory. All right? I want to take you now briefly to yet another Pinot. We can't stop buying Pinot Noirs because you can't stop buying them. And this one landed in our lap last week. I tasted it and had to have it. Now, the bottle's enormous. The label is extravagant. So it's a cool looking package, which automatically makes a thoughtful wine buyer like me very, very suspicious. Did they just spend a lot of money on looks? And then I tasted it. And I decided, no, they didn't. They actually spent money on really good fruit too. This is Sonoma Coast Pinot Noir from Le Duc Noir. And Le Duc Noir uses 3 different, really actually famous, reputable wine vineyard sources in the Sonoma Coast. I can't name them right now, we don't have time. Basically, I can't remember the names. Oh, but my God, this smells so good. So I would say to those of you who like En Route Pinot Noir, made by the Nickel and Farniente folks, kudos to them. We're gonna get that wine back on the shelf. That wine sells for about 60 bucks. This doesn't, and this emulates. If it doesn't go quite to the richness and complexity of that fantastic wine, I can say that you're getting a suggestion, at least of that here, for $29.99 down to $26.99 for Wine Club members. I want to smell this. This is a great Pinot that kind of makes you forget to taste it, but I'll try to remember. Graceful, fully ripe, and yet crisp. It tells you it's honest with the crispy, tangy part of it, and yet there's an indulgent vanilla, cherry, lots of cherry. Man, it's good. Le Duc Noir, a new Pinot Noir for the set. We hope you'll check in on it. It is now officially on thewinesteward.com, so look it up. Buy early, buy often. Thanks for your support. Is there any other wine on this table that I should tell you about before I sign off? Ah, yes, this. Here we go. So, a lot of you have heard of a little place called the Napa Valley. That's about an hour and a half's drive north of us. The Napa Valley is just a little, nearly unknown region. From what I hear, they make a lot of very good Cabernet there. From what I hear, there's a producer up there called Plumpjack. Plumpjack nowadays, from what I hear, sells for about $160 a bottle for Cabernet Sauvignon. Plumpjack also has some side projects, from what I hear. They have a project called Cade. Cade operates in the Howell Mountain District or Appalachian, sub-Appalachian of the Napa Valley, and makes mountain wine up in the Napa Valley. Howell Mountain is Cade under the Plumpjack jurisdiction, you could say. Another project of Plumpjack is called Odette. Odette operates out of the Stag's Leap district of the Napa Valley. Odette is also marvelous wine, probably the best Cabernet I've had in the last 3 years. And it's great, and it prices that way too. It's as expensive, or maybe even more so, than the Plumpjack I mentioned. What's pretty cool is Odette has a side label, a second label, whatever you want to call it. Adaptation is Odette's, let's say the barrels that didn't quite make the cut, we're at $60 and less here. This is Adaptation Cabernet 2017, just arrived. I've tasted it. It's gorgeous. As we get into the colder months and we're getting back in the mood for big red wines, please consider Adaptation. You won't regret it. You're gonna love it. And all this stuff about bravery, being courageous enough to put wines on the shelf that you've never heard of before, reminds me that there's one more thing I want to tell you about, and I just have to find the bottle. Where is that bottle of Condrieu? I cannot find it. Oh my gosh, hold on. I'm gonna go grab it. Wait right there, okay? Fortunately, it's a very small office. Lots of bottles. I have to tell you about this, okay? Because this is the ultimate example. Besides what our daughter Mary is doing with Bloom's End, here is the other ultimate example of courage in spite of pandemic, saying, hey, the holidays are coming up. We got to dress up this store. We know somebody might walk in and ask for Condrieu. We know more of you will if you hear about it. Condrieu, see this? This name right here. This is the name of a wine region in the Northern Rhone. Right next to Côte-Rôtie, famous for Syrah, is Condrieu, which can only be white wine. White wine in the Northern Rhone that has to be made entirely of what grape? Viognier. This is Viognier, not the big sloppy stuff that we more often make in California, but yes, just as fragrant, but minerally refined, defined, confined by the fact that it's grown in granite on steep slopes above the Rhone River in a little place called Condrieu. Only 100 cases of this wine were made. It's free. No one makes a lot of Condrieu. It's too the land is too hard to farm. It's too expensive to buy. The whole world wants some. This is just like a very hard thing for us to carry because it's automatically expensive, all those difficulties. This wine is under $60, and that's actually, believe it or not, a really good price for Condrieu, which is world-class white wine that maybe you haven't heard of. Now you have. Condrieu can be up to $150, $200 a bottle, really. I don't want to carry that kind of wine. I want to carry wines that is slightly approachable. You guys ought to, if you're intrigued, get in on this. Somebody just bought an entire case from us, God bless him. And he's going to surprise his wife at Christmas, I think, with that case, because they're going to enjoy this kind of wine together. Well, Condrieu, 100% Viognier, from, you could say, this is the benchmark, this is the flagship region for Viognier in the entire world. I'm so glad to have this on the shelf. Please ask us where it is. We'll point it out to you. We'll give you the guided tour. And we're glad you're here. We're glad you're brave. We're glad you're sticking with the Wine Steward. You're courageous. You're sticking with us. We're sticking with you. We can't wait to do more of that. And as we look forward to colder days and the wines that fit those days, and even holidays, we want you to think out of the box a little bit. How creative are you going to be for you and your loved ones, for your gatherings or non-gatherings this year for the holidays? We hope we can be part of it. Let's be creative together. The whole staff here at the Wine Steward is ready to help. We're grateful to them too. A lot of gratitude, a lot of bravery, a lot of courage. Have a great weekend.